Thanks for joining me today at InvestorIdeas.com, Cleantech and Climate Change podcast, looking at today's problems and solutions for the future. I'm your host, Dawn Van Zandt, founder of InvestorIdeas.com, and hoping to share our way of making a difference in climate change. Good morning. Today is a very special edition of our Cleantech and Climate Change podcast. I'm talking to Jeri Baker, the Executive Director of One Spirit, a collective of Oglala, Lakota, and volunteers from around the globe working hand in hand for the Pine Ridge Reservation community. Jeri shares some success stories of working with the Lakota people, including the startup of the Buffalo House, and how we can all learn and benefit from their respective nature and the environment. For disclosure purposes, and something I am very proud of, I am on the advisory board of One Spirit. You can learn more about them at www.onesspiritlakota.org. So, Jeri, thanks for joining us this morning. I'd really like to be able to share your story with our listeners. It's something really important to me. So can you talk about One Spirit and tell us why and when it was formed and how you got involved?
My background has always been in human services. And so when I retired from human services in 2002, I had been working with a medicine man from the Mattaponi Reservation in Virginia. And he knew about the situation on Pine Ridge Reservation and the desperate poverty that people there lived in. And he had been trying to get a sponsorship program going. And so I worked with him for that, to get that started. And then he passed to the spirit world. And I worked with the Lakota people then to set up One Spirit, which is set up to meet their needs as they identify them. So we set it up that they would do the work for the programs, and they would identify the programs, and that we would provide resources for those. That started out very small and has grown over 15 years now to encompass a lot of people and to have managed to do a lot of things on the reservation that we're very happy about.
Well, one of the things I think, I'm very proud to know about the organization, and I think that you should be very proud of. So first of all, just for our listeners, you are a federally registered nonprofit, 501c3 organization. About 90% of all of your donations received are used for direct support for Lakota programs, which is unbelievable. You're a top-rated nonprofit, and you're formally recognized by the Oglala Sioux tribe, which is, again, very significant. So looking at how some of other nonprofits operate and such a small, proportion goes to the actual work that's being done, I guess, explain to our listeners how you managed to get this done, because it is very important and significant that 90% of your money goes to the actual organization and what you want to actually achieve.
What's totally amazing, Dawn, is that the people who work for One Spirit outside of the reservation are all volunteers. And we have wonderful people with fantastic skills who come and agree to volunteer with us to help out. The only people really who get paid are the ones on the reservation. Right, people who work there, people who work with the program, build the buildings, etc., deliver the food, cut the wood. Those are all Lakota people. We only hire Lakota people. The interesting thing is that we don't send, probably very different from many charitable organizations, we do not send people on the reservation to do work there. The people there are highly intelligent, highly skilled, and they need the resources to be able to take care of their own people. So this is how we do. We pay, of course, we have expenses in spite of not paying people off here, but we do pay people on the reservation. We have normal expenses like accounting, paying for websites, whatever, telephone expenses, etc. But the only money that gets spent on people off the reservation is for them to travel to the reservation for meetings, to meet with the Lakota there, to understand better what we're doing.
Well, I always love that you told me too that sometimes you'll need something and you just send a message out to the universe and it just kind of shows up, whether it's a person, a resource, or money, or whatever it is you need. But a lot of people just magically show up to you.
Thank you very much for bringing that up. That is absolutely amazing. Because just when you think, and I'm one of these people who worries immensely about, are we going to be able to get money in? Will we have enough money to feed the people, to build the building, et cetera? But it comes, and then when I know that I need a certain skill. More recently, I knew I needed to find a good grant writer. And very quickly, one called and said, listen, would you like a good grant writer? And I'm going, sure. And since then, he's brought in maybe $200,000,
That's amazing.
On grant. It is. It's truly amazing. And you wonder, where do these people come from? But you just thank Creator, the universe, God, whatever you want to call them, and say, there's somebody else here besides me doing all this.
No, it's great. I love that you tell us that over and over again. So can you share what the mission and the vision was right in the beginning and how that's evolved over time? Because you've made a lot of accomplishments and things have really evolved significantly since the beginning.
And so has the goal and the mission, right? We started out with this understanding of ending hunger on the reservation. And it has taken us a lot longer to do that than I had ever anticipated, right? But, it involves not just ending hunger by giving enough food, but it involves much more than that. It involves helping them to grow their economy and to have something where they can grow their economy, where they can have employment, where they can grow their own food, where, so we have pursued that while at the same time providing for their basic needs. Right? We do send out food and have it prior to the COVID event of the COVID in the U.S., we were sending out food every month to about 7,000 people, right? With the COVID, we now certainly are combining forces with Farm to Family program and Feeding South Dakota, and we are sending food boxes to 2,000 people twice a month. Right? So that's a huge increase from where we were, and yet with the help of other programs, and we've been able to do that. What's really amazing, though, Dawn, to me, one of the things, it talks about people who come or skills that come, but other things that happen. Just before the COVID hit, we were talking with the new owners of the only supermarket on reservation, which is Bowie Foods, right? And R.F. Bowie is a remarkable man, because what I said to him is what we hear all the time from the Lakota people is with food stamps or with commodities or anything like that, they are not able to get household supplies. They're not able to get cleaning supplies or personal hygiene supplies. And so consequently, they're always out. They don't have diapers. They don't have toilet paper. They don't have laundry soap or shampoo or any of these things. And we won't even talk about disinfecting. But so in talking with R.F. Bowie before the COVID this was back in the fall of last year, we arranged to have a voucher system set up where people, he arranged a whole aisle on his store of products that were needed by the Lakota people. And these were good products that with a voucher from One Spirit, people could go there and they could buy what they needed. They could choose what they needed. So on that was not only laundry soap and shampoo, but also toilet paper and diapers and feminine hygiene products, which also are not allowed with food stamps or anything like that. So it's been a huge, people were thrilled to be able to go there and just pick up these things and have what they needed. It's to me, that's another instance where things happened just before the COVID hit. We were able to add disinfectant and hand wipes and all the things that are needed in order to help prevent the spread of this disease before it got there. But just before it got there,
that's amazing. Yeah.
It is amazing. You didn't ever. I don't know. It's just another one of those things.
And can you talk about some of the success stories specifically? For example, one of my favorites is the Buffalo House.
That's really great. It's another one where we worked with the Lakota. They wanted to be able to process their own buffalo and in their own way, because they do it with ceremonial harvesting of the buffalo. The buffalo is sacred to them. They use every part of it, and they did not want to take it off the reservation for processing. We have this wonderful board that also wanted to pursue this, and so we started raising money. And it took us 5 years, somewhere around that, to be able to get enough money to really see the end of the construction. But every time we get some money, we would add something else to it. So the Lakota built it, right? We finally did open this 2 years ago, and we opened it, and then a year ago it became South Dakota certified for custom exempt processing, and we are now working toward full USDA certification. During this pandemic, as you know, meat processing plants closed, but not the Buffalo House. The Buffalo House did not close, and the Buffalo House has been processing meat for the people on the reservation. It also has been processing meat for ranchers off the reservation because they couldn't take it to places, their animals to other places. So it's been, you watch this thing with amazement that how things work out. And people would say, lucky circumstance. I don't know. Whatever you want to call it, I guess.
And for somebody that's never been to the reservation, can you walk us through visually what a walkthrough, a drive-through, what would you see both in terms of the beauty and the struggles? Like, what would this look like to somebody that's never been there?
Oh, yeah. The reservation is beautiful. When you look at the landscape, it is absolutely gorgeous with rolling plains. The roads that go up and down, they're not mountains. The Black Hills are in the distance, and you can look out and see them, but they're a distance away. But the plains are there, and it's absolutely beautiful. And if you look closely, sometimes you will see animals, wild animals around. But there are 9 districts to the reservation. And if you start through them, you will see that in each district there is a cluster of houses, right? And this is called cluster housing, right? It's like any housing development that you might see anywhere, except that it's all HUD-built houses. I don't know, Dawn, if you know HUD-built houses.
No, I don't.
But they're very small 3-bedroom houses made with not the best of materials, right, but to sustain for a period of time. Most of them were very poorly built on the reservation, and they had a lot of mold, a lot of problems. The people who live in these cluster houses now in each district, when you go there, you'll see a lot of the windows boarded up. You'll see a lot of mold, a lot of people who have moved out. It's it reminds me to some extent of some time ago when I was working in human services. We had housing for the poor, right? And often in the cities or somewhere, it was these high-rise houses that never worked out. Never worked out. It was for these people who lived there were subsidized, and this did not work out. It became like high crime, high problem area. The same thing on the reservation. These houses are not well maintained. The people there, just live there as long as they can. Sometimes they get there because there are a lot of drugs and gangs there, and this does not take away from the beauty of this culture. But it's like any place where there's a lot of poverty, that you end up in small houses where right now the housing is not sufficient to take care of the people who are there. So you will often end up with more than 10 people in a house, in a small 3-bedroom house, not conducive to children who learn. Often there's not enough food there for some of the people, and the kids may not have the nutrition they need. We do hear often about people who live there, grandmothers who take care of children, who give up their food for the kids. When you drive through, you will see these cluster housing, and you will see maybe a convenience store. And if you look at the convenience store, what they have in the convenience store when you go in is several shelves and several aisles of fast food, right? Peanuts, popcorn, potato chips, whatever, and sodas, right? They will have some food that has nutrition, but mostly it will be snack food. I worry about this because of the nutrition and the vast amount of diet-related disease on the reservation. And this came about long ago, and certainly their inability to access nutritional food plays into this need, right, for this diet-related disease. So there's over 50% of the people have diabetes, right? Many people have heart disease or cancer or other diseases. And I want to stop for a minute, Dawn, because I'm always very worried when I talk about the problems on the reservation, because it paints a certain picture that leaves out a lot of information. Here are people who have survived all this time on a reservation where they were put by our government, and have managed to stay there where they have not been able to grow crops or to hunt, which is their traditional way of taking care of themselves, is through hunting, not through growing. And yet they have maintained their culture, a very beautiful culture, with beautiful dances, the powwow, beautiful artistic work. These people are major artists, whether it's painting or beadwork or sculpting or pottery. They are great artists. And they're currently working on having outlets for their art, so that, to show it to the world. They're also horsemen, so this is the horse culture, and they ride horses everywhere. And they have rites of passage, traveling several days by horse for the kids.
They do the reenactment, right, of the Crazy Horse ride, don't they?
They do the Crazy Horse ride, which is the bringing Crazy Horse back from where he was killed. Yeah. They also go to Custer's Last Stand, right, in June. Yeah. Yeah. And most important, and I don't want to leave this out at all, it's one of the most important factors in this culture, is Wounded Knee. And at Christmas time, there is a ride that comes down from Standing Rock to Wounded Knee on Pine Ridge. And usually there are anywhere from 200 to 400 people and a lot of kids who join this ride during extremely cold weather to reenact the ride to Wounded Knee, right? And that before the massacre. And so it was originally called the Bigfoot Ride. And they ride down to Wounded Knee, where they honor and commemorate what happened at Wounded Knee. And many, many people have lost track of what happened there. When I don't want to get the wrong number, and Don, if you know it, let me know. But many, many, many people were massacred and put into graves there, into communal graves. And these include a lot of mothers and children.
Mostly women and children. Yeah, mostly women and children.
Mostly women and children. Yeah, mostly women and children. And thrown into the grave by the service. The terrible thing is that a lot of the military who committed this massacre on orders were later given Purple Hearts and awards, right, for their bravery in killing these women and children. There are many things that have been done to these people in order to try to either assimilate or desecrate their culture, and yet they survive, right? They still maintain their ceremonies. I've been honored to be able to attend a few of their ceremonies, and I'm really impressed with these people and who they are. I think that our whole culture, our whole society in the U.S. and otherwise worldwide could benefit from knowing, as we do from all cultures, from knowing about these people, about the Lakota. Why would we turn them away and not make them an integral part of who we are?
I would highly recommend to any of our listeners to read the book, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. I know for me, when I read it, I literally, a day after I read it, I was in the shower and I fell to my knees weeping. When you hear like the innocence and the beauty that was lost and taken away, not just lost, taken away and, destroyed, I would, like you said, a lot of people don't know the history of Wounded Knee. And that's a great book, I think, for people to really learn and really get a sense of the heartbreak of all of it. For me, it was a big eye opener personally.
Yeah, it really is. And if you look at Pine Ridge now, where it is, it's as large as the state of Connecticut. It's home to 40,000 Native Americans, Lakota people, who maintain their culture to this day. It's really impressive to be able to talk with them, to hear their beliefs, to hear who they are. And I've been honored to sit for many hours with a lot of the elders who tell you their stories.
And speaking of stories, can you just give us one person's story to give us a glimpse and insight into what life is like there? And it can be a good story, a sad story, a happy story, just an insight to one person's story.
Sure. I think Bam Brewer will be happy for me to tell his story. He's very good. He's known as Bam Brewer. He's Charles Brewer Jr. And I started working with Bam several years ago. I think 10 years ago, when somebody had recommended that he might be a good person to manage our food program on the reservation. And we started working with him then to arrange for food to come into a building that he owned and to be able to send it out. Now this was simply a garage that we were using at the time. And Bam was absolutely amazing. Now Bam's history, and he will certainly tell you this, was that he was when he got into a lot of trouble when he was younger and ended up in juvenile for a bit, but got back home, got out of drinking, and got himself back together again. He's worked for us, and he works amazingly hard. This man he never can remember that he can't do it all. That he has to just delegate to other people, because if anything you ask him to do, he will say, "Sure, I can do that." But Bam then he was the one who said, "Look, our people need to process their own meat," and so he, with his people that he chose, built the Buffalo House, right? And he works with us. He still works with us to this day. But I think typical of Bam, and he could tell you a huge story about his background and where he is now, is that for him, he works for the people. The reason he's with us, the reason he builds the Buffalo House, the reason he handled the food program all those years was to give to the people. He also has gone out and cut the wood and delivered it to the people, and gotten his family involved in doing that as well. I think he's typical of what we see on the reservation, of people who really want to take care of their people and to do what's right for them.
Well, that's amazing. So from a personal level, I know you've probably learned a million lessons from these people and working with them. What's your biggest takeaway? What's your biggest lesson that you've learned from being involved in this nonprofit and working with the Lakota?
That I have even more to learn. It happens all the time. And every time you think, you get into something, you think, somebody starts to tell you something, you start to do something, you realize it's not culture. It's a different kind of culture. One of the things that's here's huge. What I really believe is that we do charitable work. We need to change the way we do charitable work. I think I have learned very much that people want to be respected, and they want to be able to take care of their own. They don't want somebody to come in and do it for them. Right. So I think that we need to more and more give people the resources, help them identify or let them identify what they need, and help them create that for themselves, rather than our trying to come in and tell them what they need, right? And doing it for them. We don't need to be doing that. So I think that, looking at that, and I'm a person who grew up in human services, and somehow or other, I think I always knew that as you or I would want, we want to do things for ourselves. We don't want somebody doing for us. And it's the same for all over. It may not always be in the way that the white world would want, but it doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. That's all. It's we have not included the natives at all in our society. Many people don't even know where they live, much less who they are or what they're about. So we started another program, and we started bringing Skyping people from the reservation into schools so that they could talk. The kids at high school could talk to natives on the reservation and sort of learn through their social studies class and learn who they are and what they're all about. And this is coming directly from the natives rather than what they might read in a book that may or may not be accurate. Right? But I think I think we could benefit a lot from including the natives more directly, as we can with all cultures, not just the natives, but with all cultures, and not disrespecting who they are. There's so much controversy now about how we respect people, but we need to take a look at that.
And so, since the universe is always in cooperation with you and does send helping hands when you need it, for anyone listening, can you tell them how they can share what they know, how their money, they can donate their time, their expertise? How can they get in touch with you, and how can they help make this even a bigger accomplishment for you and your team?
I would be happy to do it, and I would be happy to tell you what we're doing now for the next year, so that people could really work with us. Certainly, you can get onto our website, and it's One Spirit Lakota, all written out in lowercase, .org. Right? You can go there. You will find ways of donating money. If you want to give money, you also will find all the other programs that are there and see what we're doing. And if you have skills that you think would be helpful to us, then my telephone number is on the website, as is my email address on the website. And all you need to know is it's onespiritlakota.org. What we need in the next year or two is to be able to bring the Buffalo House now to the completion of USDA certification, so that will enhance, not only provide the traditional meat that they need, but will enhance their economy and give people employment there. We also are buying and setting up land so that we can set up hoop houses and grow field produce that so people can grow their own food and distribute it across the reservation. And the unfortunate thing, we talked about the amount of disease that's on the reservation, and unfortunately, another thing that we need to look at is we are doing with food banks, and a lot of the food in food banks is not appropriate for the diets of the Native Americans who have diabetes, or anybody who has diabetes, because they are highly processed, they are high sugar products, and they need nutritional food that fits for their needs, for their health needs. I think that in growing produce and in growing their own, and looking at their traditional foods, buffalo certainly is one of the traditional foods, but so are vegetables, and they have something they call timpsula, which is a wild turnip. They do choke cherries. They gather choke cherries, which is a wild berry that they make a lot of things from. But their traditional foods are very good, and if we can give them what they need in order to have those traditional foods, I think their health problems will begin to recede as well.
Well, so, I hope the universe listens. Yeah. And I hope
me too, because it
gives you everything you need.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you so much. It's my dream. It's just to see finally that they are able to grow their own crops, have their own buffalo, have an economy that hires people, and where they work and get a decent wage. What more can you ask? Just decent life.
That's right, which is all everybody asks for. It's not.
That's all we ask for.
That's not too much to ask for anybody. We all should have those rights and that happiness. So personally, right. I want to really thank you for everything you do. I think you're one of the most amazing women I've ever met, and I really look up to you. And I really hope we can reach out to some people and like you say, there's a lot of people that aren't aware. They're not aware of what's happening on some of these reservations, both good and bad. And I think it's really important to learn about the culture, to respect this culture, and then to integrate this culture, because there's so much we can learn and benefit from their respective
Absolutely.
nature and their respective environment, especially in this time in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for this opportunity, Dawn. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again, and I think hopefully the next interview we can interview Bam and get a real personal insight to what happens on the reservation. And again, his story is amazing and shows how anybody can turn their life around and contribute. So thank you again, and I look forward to a follow-up very soon.
Thank you very much, Dawn.
Okay.
To hear more Cleantech podcasts, visit the Cleantech and Climate Change page on Investor Ideas. You can find it on our top template. Also, Investor Ideas has a lineup of other podcasts and themes, including the AII, the Crypto Corner, our cannabis podcast called Cannabis News and Stocks on the Move, rated one of the top investor podcasts in the sector, Play by Play, a podcast looking at sports and esports news, and Exploring Mining. To listen to any of our podcasts, visit our podcast page on Investor Ideas at investorideas.com/audio. And a reminder, you can hear our podcasts on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Google Play Music, and most audio platforms available to you. If you like any of our podcasts, we would appreciate you recommending them or reviewing them on your audio platform. And to help you follow and track clean tech and renewable energy stocks, Investor Ideas has created a directory of publicly traded stocks in the sector. You can find that by going to our homepage, looking on the sidebar and looking at renewable energy and environmental themes, and you'll find our stock directories there. Investor Ideas does remind all of investors to read our disclaimers and disclosures on our site. You can find them at investorideas.com/about-disclaimer.asp. It is important to read these. And this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investment involves risk and a possible loss of investment. Thank you again and have a great day.